additional perspectives, introspection, and analysis of these remarkable events in the United States. We are now being joined by Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, a former Nigerian Minister of External Affairs. He is the chairman of the national think tank here in Nigeria. Welcome to the program, Prof. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Abati.
Thank you for
Good morning, Adesua.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Oseni.
Good morning, sir.
Well, Prof, since the program started this morning, we've been focusing on what happened at Capitol Hill in the U.S. Yesterday. The whole idea of a sitting president of the United States organizing what looks like a coup against Congress. Is this something that is usual or it is unusual? What's your take, Prof?
Thank you very much. When you graciously invited me to take part in your program, and I accepted, I didn't know in my wildest imagination that we will be talking about the seizure of the American Capitol, the seat of Congress, in an attempted coup, an attempted insurrection, or whatever name that you may wish to call it, instigated by a sitting president of the United States in an act of treason. There's no other word, you know. This is the time for us not to beat about the bush. In an act of treason. Now, from the beginning, if you play back some of the tapes of your conversation with me, this is what I had been afraid of. Although I didn't think that there would be an attempt to seize the Capitol, I've been afraid of violence on the streets of the United States as a result of the election. And people thought I was, being too dramatic. Well, here we are. But, or not but, in addition, we must question where were the American security forces. Have you ever seen an American policeman? It's like Mr. Rambo himself, chest puffed out, marching down the street, staring you down, wishing you would say one wrong word and that gun will come out. Where were they? When they were needed, where were they? We knew this thing was coming. I had always prided the Americans on their art of preparedness. In fact, I usually accuse them that they over-prepare, they over-plan. The Committee on Risk Analysis will have sat and to micromanage whatever the event may be. One knew for 1 week that there was going to be a collection of Trump's thugs on the streets of America. And in his tweet, at least give this to Trump, he doesn't do anything in secret. He called them, he said, there's going to be on January 6th in Washington an event. Come to Washington. Now, sitting here in Nigeria, I could anticipate what was going to happen. Where were the security forces? And I sat there petrified as these people invaded Congress. And it took almost 2 hours. 2 hours for the first reinforcement to show up to reinforce the Capitol Police. And then they kept saying the National Guard had been activated. I thought they would be on standby. They were the last to show up. Was there collusion? Or, again, is one being too dramatic? But what happened in the United States yesterday was treason, pure and simple.
Prof, we see a president who perhaps the first to not concede, the first to allege that elections have been rigged, the first to stoke violence and division. But can we blame the president alone for this chaos? Should he be blamed alone for this chaos?
Oh, no. But you're right. I mean, the pillars of the Republican Party were complicit in what Trump has visited on the United States. They didn't stand up to him. They lacked courage. I don't want to use the word that will have been used in Cuba, but they lacked that as well. They were not thinking of the United States. You know, at least I remember 2 times when Congress itself stood up to one of its members, and that was Senator McCarthy, and censored him for his vitriolic attack on the rights of American citizens. The second time was when the pillars, the leaders in Congress of the Republican Party went to the White House and told one of their own, President Nixon, that it was over during the Watergate crisis, that he had to go, that he had no more support in Congress. Where are men of valor? Where are men strong enough to stand up to this man? Yes, one by one they started dropping off like ripe fruits from a tree. But for too long, they had allowed Trump to go from a petty con man into a monster on the American political scene. And it's a shame on the United States, but it is also a danger to democracy. And that's why we are here in Nigeria talking. Under normal circumstances, what will be our business? Let them face what they have created. But a threat to democracy in the United States is a threat to democracy all over the world. So you are quite right. Trump alone is not to be blamed, but fish rots from the head. Trump has a primary responsibility for the danger that America faces.
Prof, I think it was Abraham Lincoln on the fields of Gettysburg that made that very famous Gettysburg address that said 80 years ago, our father bequeathed us this land, and he went ahead to say that those that died on Gettysburg had consecrated the land so that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall never end on the face of the earth. That was amidst a war that divided the South and other parts of America. If Lincoln was to see this about the democracy he loved so much in America, Prof, what do you think Lincoln will say as a scholar?
I think what will cross his mind, looking at the desecration of that symbol of democracy flashed all across the world, will be a determination. You see, what you quoted, I wish you had completed it. He said that, government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall never perish. Those 3 words. Sorry?
Yeah, that's it. Go ahead, Prof.
That is what will have been in the mind of Lincoln. What will I say? What action will I take? that that desecration will be regarded as an isolated blot on American growth to democracy. Where there are times events are so evil that you wish, can there be a silver lining in all of this? The silver lining is that the United States probably will become less arrogant in its lecturing the rest of us about democracy. They will now recognize that fighting to install democracy, fighting to preserve democracy is a daily struggle, even in the United States. Work in progress. The United States has bamboozled the rest of the world for a very long time. That they had achieved it, that they had got the perfect answer, and that the rest of us must either be dumb or wicked or whatever in not achieving democracy, or in having democracy in our own whatever it is.
Prof,
now,
sorry to interrupt you.
That they have confronted this.
Prof, sorry to interrupt you. Nancy Pelosi is on the screen. We'll just go straight to the House of Reps, and then when we're done with that, we'll come back to you. Please stay with us.
Now, that's the bad news, Madam Speaker, that they've taken her. But the good news is she's going to be the administration's representative to the House of Representatives. So we're going to see a lot of Schwanza, and I'm sure she'll be talking to both of us on both sides of the aisle and urging us to vote one way or the other, or getting us information, or doing all sorts of things that we might ask her to do and that she would want to do for us. And I just wanted to say, Madam Speaker, and I know you share my view, those of us who have had an opportunity to work closely with Schwanza. I love Schwanza Goff. She is just a wonderful, wonderful spirit. She's smart. She knows the rules. She knows the floor. And she has facilitated, and I think Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Scalise's staff would say the same thing if I'd given them any notice that we were going to do this. But I thought we had some time. And so, Schwanza, I really do want to thank you. And we wish you the best of luck. We know you're not going far. I know we're going to see a lot of you. But we wish you great, great success in everything you do thereafter. I tell my staff, Madam Speaker, that they can go off the payroll. They cannot go off the staff. God bless you. Good luck.
Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, thank you for staying with us. Sorry to interrupt you earlier. We wanted to double-check the situation at the House of Representatives in the United States. Prof, if you are still with us, we're back to you.
Yes, I am still with you. I was starting to doze off. You know, I was awake until about 5 o'clock this morning, following what was going on in Congress, so that one would be up to date.
Well, Prof, I was going to ask you, in addition...
yeah.
No, if you may just conclude your thoughts, what you were saying before we went on break about what has happened to American democracy.
Yes, I really can't remember what I was saying.
You basically were saying America should bite the humble pie and not lecture the rest of the world on democracy.
Exactly. Thank you, Adesua. We're all learners. All of us, both the developing countries and the developed countries, we are all learners. And we will have to strive to build upon our efforts in order to achieve a more perfect form of democracy. But it is a fight. It is going to be a struggle. And the lesson to the rest of us including those who are demonstrating in Ghana now, who are rejecting their own elections results, and who are about to embark on a journey of uncertainty, I asked them to look at what has just happened in the United States. It was not a pretty sight at all. And you know, well, all of you will not know. You are too young to know. But what it reminded me of was that struggle in 1962, the fight on the floor of the Western House of Assembly. I was 20 then, and how honorable members were climbing out through windows because of fire on the mountain declaration within the chambers. As I watched American congressmen and senators rolling on the floor, hiding behind chairs and so on. So we all have a history that is almost the same. Nothing unique about that.
Hello, Prof. Hello?
Yes.
Okay, you are still with us. Well, before we go back, because it looks like the joint session is about to reconvene, but very quickly, the point you raised at the beginning of the conversation about the failure of the police in Washington, D.C., do you expect that there should be an inquiry into what transpired? And then many world leaders have spoken up to condemn what happened in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Should the Nigerian government also issue a statement to express concern? Will you recommend that?
Yes, two things to your questions. One, I think there should be a bipartisan congressional inquiry into what took place, especially the response and the preparedness by the security forces. Number two, yes, the Nigerian government should issue a statement, not a sarcastic one, not a condemnatory one of America, but a statement emphasizing our commitment in the joint struggle to entrench democracy and to ensure that the rights and the benefits that have come from the 2020 elections, now that the Democrats have captured the Senate, that those rights are not frittered away.
The announcement of the state of the vote by the President of the Senate shall be deemed a sufficient declaration of the persons elected President and Vice President of the United States, each for the term beginning on the 20th day of January, 2021, and shall be entered together with the list of the votes on the journals of the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Chair now recognizes, for the purpose of closing prayer, the 62nd Chaplain of the United States Senate, Chaplain Barry C. Black.
Let us pray. Lord of our lives and sovereign of our beloved nation, we deplore the desecration of the United States Capitol building, the shedding of innocent blood, the loss of life, and the quagmire of dysfunction that threaten our democracy. These tragedies have reminded us that words matter and that the power of life and death is in the tongue. We have been warned that eternal vigilance continues to be freedom's price. Lord, you have helped us remember that we need to see in each other a common humanity that reflects your image. You have strengthened our resolve to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, domestic as well as foreign. Use us to bring healing and unity to a hurting and divided nation and world. Thank you for what you have blessed our lawmakers to accomplish in spite of threats to liberty. Bless and keep us. Drive far from us all wrong desires. Incline our hearts to do your will and guide our feet on the path of peace. And God bless America. We pray in your sovereign name. Amen.
The purpose of the joint session having concluded, pursuant to Senate Concurrent Resolution 1, 117th Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Well, all is well that ends well, as they say, and that closing prayer sounds very much like a rebuke. Professor Bolaji Akinyemi is still with us, former Nigerian Minister of External Affairs. Prof, thank you very much for your patience. But Prof, are there lessons we can learn from all of this? Officially now, Joe Biden is president-elect. The process, we've seen the process in spite of the crisis yesterday, that has worked at the end of the day. The election on November 3rd, the Electoral College sitting on December 14, and now January 6th, we have the certification, in spite of all odds, by Congress. Are there lessons that we can still learn? Is there some beauty still to American democracy, despite the crisis we saw yesterday? Professor Akinyemi,
well,
yes.
I believe the lesson is perseverance. Resist the temptation to cut corners. Resist the temptation to resort to extra constitutional means in resolving political crises. It may take long, it may be dangerous, but as you rightly said in your comments, all will end well. The temptation has always been, when confronted with political crisis, to try to resort to the streets, or resort to the military, or resort to any other extra constitutional means. I do congratulate the United States for this successful completion of the process. But don't let us ignore the fact that the institutions took a beating. This was a heavyweight boxing match between the institutions and those who sought to subvert the institutions. It was a brutal, heavyweight boxing match. But at the end, the institutions and democracy survived, overcame, prevailed, and were all the happiest for it. But I don't know if you have any more questions, but let me just say this. We've just seen, I believe, not the end of the attempt to subvert. In the next 4 years, Trump, whether in jail or outside, is going to use those unfortunate, mindless thugs who cannot think for themselves to pose a threat to the Biden administration every day of that administration.
Prof,
in whatever form those threats.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. I thought you were done with your thoughts.
Oh, no. In whatever form those threats may manifest themselves. So let us be vigilant. As the pastor said, let us be vigilant. Let the Biden administration be vigilant. Those people are not going to go away. They may go underground. They may crawl back into the soil from where they came from, but they still will be there.
Indeed. And Prof, you partly answered my next question. You are projecting for the next 4 years. But we do know that, President Trump's supporters were able to disrupt this process for some time before it went ahead. And I'm wondering, what do you think his end game is here for the next 13 days? What's the strategy of the president? What is he likely to do in the next 13 days?
That's a very good question. And I wish I could read his mind, a very twisted mind. Frankly, he is psychologically ill. But I was struck during the week by the fact that all surviving secretaries of state signed that op-ed. I believe it was in the New York Times or Washington Post. I don't remember which paper it was.
Washington Post.
Is there something, Washington Post, thank you. Is there something they know that we don't know? Have there been attempts at instigating elements of American armed forces subterraneously? And is this what has led them into saying or into writing what they wrote? Also, at the peak of the insurrection yesterday, the acting Secretary of Defense and the chairman, Joint Services Chiefs, in their statement reiterated that the American Armed Forces were committed to the American Constitution. I believe that, and this is why I said we haven't seen the end of this. President Trump is a player, he's a card player. Until the last dice is rolled on January 20, he's not going to give up. In his twisted mind, what looks obscene and unthinkable to you and I and all thinking people may all of a sudden appear to him, especially surrounded by Giuliani, his sons, and what have you. And incidentally, I hope Giuliani and the son will not be arrested before January 20 for their incendiary speech to that mob yesterday, because that was incitement to insurrection. If you arrest them before January 20, Trump will pardon them. But January 21st, I hope handcuffs will be slammed on Giuliani and the Trump sons and all those who have been involved in. It's wicked what they did, playing and twisting the minds of a sick president and the minds of illiterate and poor people who cannot think for themselves. It's really insane what they did.
Okay, sir. Trump, breaking news now says Trump has conceded finally, and he said that there would be an orderly transfer of power on the 20th of January. That's the breaking news making the rounds now. Sorry, I'm romanticizing a lot this evening, Professor. This morning, Professor. Would you say that the Star-Spangled Banner is flying triumphantly today? Would you say America has redeemed itself? Would you truly say that America is the home of the brave today?
I'm sorry if I cannot be that expansive in my remark. Am I supposed to congratulate Trump now? Am I? Is the world not supposed to applaud the fact that he almost sank the ship of state and that had to be rescued by Pence, the vice president? Because since the election in November, Trump had abdicated his responsibility as president, even including last night. It was Pence who was coordinating the defense of the republic. He was the one who was in touch with the security forces and the acting attorney general and the director of the FBI and what have you. So at this last minute, in fact, to me, it's like Trump's jumping ship. Haven't led that ship into almost an abyss. So I would still say that it is battered. That flag is battered, but it is flying high. It is flying high. I concede that. But it's battered.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, former Nigerian Minister of External Affairs, Chairman of the National Think Tank Nigeria, for joining us on the morning show today.